Ryan, what's on your radar?
Well, under our current system, if you get hit with a medical bill that you don't pay at the full sticker price within 6 months, even if you end up paying it or otherwise resolving the claim, it can sit on your credit report for up to 7 years. That type of debt accounts for tens of billions of dollars worth that hangs like a stone around the neck of anybody who needs credit for a car, a house, an apartment, a credit card, whatever. It raises your cost of living and you get nothing but grief in return. The CFPB says that as much as $88 billion in medical bills stain at least 43 million credit cards. Now, starting in July, credit reporting firms are going to strip all of that type of debt off of people's credit reports, thanks to pressure from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and its head, Rohit Chopra, who's become the bane of klepto firms big and small, dating back to his time as their nemesis on the Federal Trade Commission. The companies are also going to remove medical debt of less than at least $500, which is a ton of it, because people often get bills they didn't expect, they don't pay them or they don't pay them right away, and then it lives on your credit rating forever. New debts won't be added to credit reports unless they're outstanding for at least a year, and any debts that were paid by insurance companies have to be removed too. Now, it's pathetic that this qualifies as a victory, because they never should have been doing any of this to begin with. And frankly, the concept of medical debt itself, unless it's medical debt for like plastic surgery or something, is an obscene concept. In 2015, after credit reporting companies were sued by a slew of attorneys general, they made some modest reforms, like taking parking tickets and gym memberships off of credit reports. The idea here is to take away a key weapon wielded by scammers like gyms, which offer low introductory rates and then sneak you into a high-priced plan, make it impossible to cancel, and then force you to pay by threatening to ruin your credit. And lots of people decide it's worth paying that ransom because if they don't, they'll pay more because of a bad credit score. Now, for years, regulators have warned credit reporting companies not to empower these scam artists by taking everything they send with no questions asked. But they only buckled after getting sued by the AGs and now with Rohit Chopra in their face. These concessions will be helpful to millions of people, and a win is a win. But if you ask me, Chopra should press on and let them know this isn't enough. Let them pay the ransom this time. Besides, if they think the CFPB will back off after a concession, that'll make them bolder when it comes to actually implementing these promises. Because right now, that's all they are, is promises. Now, it's not actually clear medical debt below a very large threshold should even be on a credit report, because whether you have some smallish medical debt really has nothing to do with whether you're likely to pay your bills or not. All it means is that you went to a hospital or some other provider and their intricately designed billing system figured out how to nail you. The other reason to keep pressing forward is that credit reporting companies in general need a kick in the teeth. Right now, the CFPB is investigating Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion for how they handle consumer disputes and the roadblocks that the company puts in front of people who are trying to challenge bogus debts that have been slapped on their report. Aside from medical debt, one of the other big things the CFPB has been pushing on is overdraft fees, which are a plague upon humanity. Banks have developed sophisticated algorithms that'll move charges around so that they can maximize the number of times that they can hit you with NSF fees. Under pressure from the CFPB, a lot of banks have been voluntarily announcing that they're doing away with them. That's great. But I hope the CFPB doesn't take the boot off their necks, because those fees will come right back if the CFPB gets taken over again by a political operative who doesn't want it to exist, like happened when Trump let Mick Mulvaney try to destroy it, which, by the way, is a curious way to show how populist you are by doing the bidding of con artists on Wall Street. So I think, Robbie, I'm curious where you come down on this, because it's an interesting question for a libertarian, because these are private companies, these credit rating agencies, yet they have pretty much like monopolistic dictatorial power over you. So at what point, does the public have to start pushing back against them?
Yeah, and the system for paying for medical bills is so weird. It's not a truly private system. It's not a truly public system. It's very confusing. I mean, the insurance system is so confusing. And I know exactly the problem you're talking about. I know people who've been impacted by this. Sometimes it can happen to people who have financial resources and are perfectly capable of paying off these bills, but don't know that they were charged. Maybe you get mailed a bill to the last apartment you lived in. Maybe it was an email, you missed it. Maybe because it comes months later. And you're wait, what was this? Didn't I pay that there? Isn't it a copay? What am I supposed to do?
I thought I paid this at the office.
Right, this is a broader problem.
This is not a bill.
Exactly. This is a huge problem with medical services, is that nobody knows what they're paying for.
Yeah.
There's no market in it. There's no, you might change what it's not like a service, you know what you're paying for. Like, oh yeah, I'll order this, I'll get this. I don't need that, and that sounds too steep right now, I don't want to do that. That just doesn't happen. You just do it, and then later you get a bill, and you're like, okay, wait, what do I have to pay? Doesn't insurance pay this? Oh, they aren't paying this, but I got to pay this. It's the worst system ever. You could not make a worse system. Like a truly socialist system, which I would oppose, would probably be more like internally consistent than this system, at least. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a problem, and possibly, while I don't love the idea of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in general, this is probably a more legitimate use of their time than most things, because it's just it's a truly terrible system.
And I think the company's willingness to just voluntarily take this stuff off shows that it actually isn't
defensible.
Right, because their job is to tell banks and other lenders who's creditworthy and who's not. So if they really thought that taking medical debt off of people's credit scores was going to undermine their ability to deliver an accurate product to these lenders, they would fight and say, no, we need this information because this tells us who's going to pay. But there's been a lot of research, public research, that shows that there's actually not a whole lot of connection between who has medical debt and who's creditworthy, and clearly their own internal research shows that we can lose this, which then shows they knew they didn't need it, but it was just easier for them to just slap it on there, and so they're like, well, unless we're getting fierce pressure, and I think this, and I hope that a similar dynamic plays out on insufficient funds fees. Those are the worst. Those are absolutely the worst. It's like, let's say you've got like.
This is when you take out too much money from your bank account?
Yeah, you got $50 in your account.
Yeah.
And you go to, during the day, you spend $5 at Starbucks, and then you spend, $4 on a metro ticket, and then you spend $50 on something else. What they do is they figure out a way to take the 50 first, even if it was last, move that in. So now they got you down there, and then they slap you for the coffee and the other thing that you spent. So it turns out being a $35 coffee, a $35 sandwich, plus then. And so then at the end of the day, you're out.
A $35 coffee, that's like Starbucks price.
Yeah, in a couple months, probably.
Yeah, it's not good. I worry about how insurance systems, especially for medical, that's true for education, for higher ed, disguise the price, encourage certain decision makers to raise the price because it's so disguised to the consumer, and it's a big problem.
Surprise billing, yeah. Figuring that out. And we're looking forward to what's on your radar up next.